Right, hello again. I'm not entirely sure what happened. I was cut off on the first video, so I'm now going to follow up with the second. I've already gone into all the menu and everything, so I will now look at a free practice session, actually go into that, showcase a car, sort of look at a couple of the main features with the menus when you're actually in a session and everything. So I'm going to go for one of my favourite cars. I'm going to go for the McLaren MP4 GT3 car, and I'm going to go to the Laguna Seca Raceway, a track that's famous for the notorious sort of corkscrew corner, which I think if some cars were taken there would probably be damaged. That's probably why. Well, there it is. There's a corkscrew right there. You know, massive elevation change you've got on that corner. Once you drop down from there, you know about it. I mean, look at the height difference, it's crazy. But they've picked the right photograph for that, definitely. So, yeah, F1 will never be there, you know, F1 cars would just be damaged. In fact, when I drive this round here, you'll probably hear some scraping. So first of all, this menu here, there's not a massive amount to talk about, and you usually have more of this available when you're in a solo session or an online session. You know, you've got a monitor where you can watch other drivers, you can see the players in the session and view their details and the profiles on the console and all that sort of thing. You can save pit strategies, and there's also quite an extensive tuning setup list, some of which I don't really understand. I know about, well, it tells you all your information, your details here, it gives you like an overview. I know about tyre pressure and camera angle, ride height, spring rate, and that's about it. I don't know any of the rest, so I'm not an absolute nerd. I'm just a semi-car freak. Now, a couple of things I want to point out with this. Generally what the driving's like, and the visuals and the audio, the different camera views, and also quite an interesting option which I'll come on to in a minute. So first of all, when you leave the pits, it's an automatic sort of control. You know, I'm not actually doing anything at the moment. I'm just panning the camera around, showing the car off. It's one of my favourite liveries. When I get to about this point here, it tells me there manual control. Now I'm driving the car. So I'll do the right thing. I don't have to. I can actually just cut across, but I will leave the pits without crossing the white line. I'll go all the way to the end, and yeah. So I'll start off with the visuals and sounding. So first of all, visuals, very good. The tracks are quite well detailed, the cars are very well detailed. I've got the other sort of the flames sort of kicking out of the back there. All of that. There it is again. Something that might feel like a minor thing, but I think is really good. If you watch the rear, sort of, if you watch the brake lights, they're clear enough, but they're not like on other games where it's just really solid red and it doesn't really look like a light, but more like something that's changed colour suddenly, if that makes any sense. With this, you can sort of see it's like a more sort of, I don't know how to describe it. You can see it's sort of graduated. You know, it's not really, and if you look from different angles, it's not quite as bright and everything. I don't know. The lights are done very well on this game, and I quite like that, especially when you're driving at night. When you're in endurance racing, you see those lights, it's very satisfying. The sound on this game is fantastic. Better than on games like Gran Turismo, where a lot of cars sounded quite dull, or they repeated the same sound clips over and over again. So you might be driving a few different muscle cars and it would all sound virtually the same, unless you put a supercharger on them and it changed it a bit because you had that sort of whine. While on this game, all the cars sound different. This one sounds quite throaty, really, for what it is. However, if I drove the Aston Martin GT3 car instead, that's got more of a hyper sort of sound. So it's really good that all of the cars are done in a very detailed way, and they're all quite distinctive, and you feel like you're driving a different car, not just the same car with a different body show, you know, because that's a lot of the time that's what it is on a lot of other games. Now, in terms of the number of cars and tracks, I think there are actually the same sort of number of tracks on here as you would get on something like Gran Turismo or Forza, but there aren't as many cars at the moment. I think there are 100, 200 cars, something like that. Obviously, Gran Turismo has 1,000 cars. Now, Gran Turismo is a game that's had many incarnations. Yeah, we've had 6 main games of Gran Turismo, but also a couple of other side games. So you're probably talking 8 or 9 games in total for Gran Turismo. Now, in that time, obviously they've had all that chance to sort of get more and more cars added to the game. So I think, yeah, you've got to cut this some slack for now. Bearing in mind this is the first one they've ever done, the first sort of Project Cars game. It's very, very promising for the future, and this is a damn good game as it is. You know, there's plenty of choice anyway. You know, there might not be quite as many cars as there are on Gran Turismo, but having said that, a lot of the cars on Gran Turismo are sort of duplicates. You know, how many different versions do you need of the Skyline or an S2000 or anything like that? You know, it's the same car really, and that sort of gets on the nerves. There's a massive Japanese bias on Gran Turismo, but you don't end up with any of those problems on here. So, you know, if they follow up this game with later Project Cars games, you know, 2, 3, 4, however far this goes, you can bet it's going to be very good, because this is incredibly impressive for a first game. This is amazing. Yeah, so that's pretty much all that. Camera views now. So this is your standard third-person view here. You've got this sort of up-front cam, quite low down, so it's sometimes difficult to see the corners coming up, which is why I don't use it very often. You've also got this view, so the bonnet cam. Then there's things like, well, your interior views obviously. Now, the detail on the interiors is very impressive, and I just really like driving on this view. It's very immersive and it's great. It's not the only interior view though, actually. This is one from the driver's sort of position where you've also got the centrally mounted interior view to give you a better judgment on the corners, I suppose. I don't like this one quite as much, but I can understand why it's there, so it's a good option. This one might look the same as the one I just put on a couple of times ago, but it's not. This is actually a helmet cam. You can see the sort of helmet around the edges. Well, the main difference with this is that if I'm obviously the visual sort of aspect of it is quite blurry sometimes, especially if you're in an intense moment that it starts shaking and blurring even more when the sort of focus of the driver's eyes changes as cars come up. So that's really sort of in depth. But if I just sort of speed up a bit, what you'll see in a minute, if I stop talking for a while, you'll see the driver's head turn with the corner, so I'll just watch this. As you could see there, the driver sort of turned very slightly to the right as we were going around the corner. I'll just do it again. I mean, that'll take a lot of getting used to, so I've not mastered it yet. Definitely the hardest view to drive on, if I can get my words the right way around. Now there's this view as well, similar to the bonnet camera, but this is actually mounted on the roof. It's not the same for all cars, but for all cars it is the same in the sense that it's the same as the bonnet cam, but it's slightly further back and slightly higher up as well. So that's quite a good option. And then back to this again, so the choice of views is very good. So what I will do now is just show you the other thing I was talking about, which is this, the edit heads-up display layout option. Now this is quite interesting. So I'll just show you straight off. If I say, right, okay, I don't want my speedo there, I want it top left, which is a bit unusual, but I want it there anyway because that's just my preference. Well, there it is. I've never actually seen this option before in a racing game, but yeah, it's quite handy. So you've got all these different sort of black dots on the screen, and they're the different possible positions that you can put things. So that's a really good feature. And yeah, if I have actually changed this myself. Things were a little bit scattered. I think the timings and the track map were sort of top corners, but I wanted more of my screen available, and I wanted the top corners free because that's where you're sort of looking ahead to. So there's not as many distractions when you're focusing on the corners coming up. So I moved it all down to the bottom. I'll put my two tables together, my positions, my laps, my timings, and then I've got my speedo and my track map on the other side. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything really. Obviously another car will look very different, sound very different, and the interiors are very different. In fact, the Aston Martin GT3 car has a camera in it. It's like a rear view camera on the dash, so that's quite cool. You don't even have to look behind you like this. You can just literally look on the camera, that's sort of where the driver's looking now, sort of like in the centre of the screen, and it just saves quite a lot of effort. So I've never seen that on an interior on a racing game before, but it's really cool. So overall, I'm really impressed with this game. It's not for everyone. Some people say it's too hard. It is more of a simulator than it is an arcade game, that's for certain. And some people say it's a bit dull. Dull, I'd say, is the wrong word. Professional, more like it. It's not as frenetic or as glamorous as other racing games, but it doesn't need to be. You know, it does the job. If you're into this sort of thing, then by all means go for it. But when you drive a road car like the stock sort of McLaren F1, you will notice a significant lack in grip. But I suppose that's something to go into another time. But I hope that this sort of two-part overall showcase has been beneficial, and I'll hope to see you in another video.